Hello, I'm Amy. I'm a drama therapist. Welcome to my channel, Play It Through. Don't forget to like, share and subscribe to this channel and ring the bell to get more notifications of other videos. This is a series of videos called Tiny Traumas, and we're looking at the small t traumas. So not the big T traumas, which are the events like assault or rape or war, but the little t traumas like falling off a bike. These are things that are not traumatic to most people that go through them, but for some people might still generate that trauma response. In response to recent events, what I really want to hone in on is racism. So again, not the racism of being murdered for your race. That is a big T trauma, and we're not looking at big T traumas in this series. But I want to look at the small t traumas. So how is racism there in the background all the time? Looking at things like institutional racism, microaggressions, all of the ways that people may be racist without even knowing that they're being racist. Some people might ask, why are you doing this video? You're a white person, you don't know about this, why are you speaking into this? And you know, there's a legitimate question behind that, because this is people's real stories, it's their real experiences, and absolutely people should have a voice to share those experiences and to own their own stories. And I'm not trying to take away from anybody else's experiences, and go and watch their videos as well. This should not be the only one that you watch on this or the only thing that you read. Go and find out more. The alternative to doing this is not doing it. And if I don't do it, then I'm part of the silence that surrounds this issue, and that's not acceptable either. And you know, sometimes I've got this wrong. Sometimes I have. I haven't always been perfect, and I'm trying to educate myself and to make changes and to be better. And I'm encouraging all of my listeners to also think about how they can take steps to educate themselves, to do better, and when hurt's caused, to apologize and to repair. There's a concept in therapy of rupture and repair, of when things go wrong, about saying, okay, how can we make this better? And it's now, this video for me is trying to speak into that, of saying, let's understand the context of this, let's understand the impact, let's understand the part we play in this environment that we're all living in, and let's think about how we can do better. So I want to start by looking at schools, because this is often the first time that people interact outside of their own social groups or families, and it's often the first time that people encounter difference and encounter prejudice. So as all of these students enter the school, the teacher looks out on the new class and starts to make assumptions on who is going to do well and who is maybe not going to do as well. And there's a load of research to back this up. And one of the factors that might influence that teacher's decision making might be race. Even if we just assume that that is just a thought in the teacher's head, actually that affects the whole experience of what then happens. How much eye contact does the teacher give to different students? How much does the teacher smile at different students? How much attention does the teacher give when the student needs help with a problem that they're facing? If the teacher turns round and sees a student talking, how many warnings does that student get before the teacher sends them out of class? Teacher's initial expectations will impact all of that. What the teacher thinks is going to happen then manifests into some of what does happen. Robert Rosenthal and Lenore Jacobson published the results of a powerful study which was known as the Pygmalion Effect. So self-fulfilling prophecy, where one's expectations about a person can eventually lead that person to behave and achieve in ways that confirm those expectations. So if you're a student in this class and you're perpetually being sent these messages from the teacher that you're not good enough, eventually you might begin to believe that about yourself, or you may begin to act in a way that reinforces that. Because if you're going to get in trouble anyway, then maybe you just conform to that and say, well, fine, I'm not going to try not to because it won't make a difference. And that won't be just one teacher, that could be several teachers. And there may be some teachers that are more aware of this and make more of a conscious effort not to do this. But equally, there might be some other teachers who are much worse than this. Not all teachers are equal. When I was a teenager, sometimes if I was walking on the street with a group of friends, occasionally somebody would see us coming and would cross the road to avoid us. But you know, that hasn't happened to me in over 10, maybe even 20 years. For some people, that is always their reality. And it's not just about being with a group of friends, it's just about who they are. Because there's this perception that somehow people of different races might be a danger or might be unsafe. Just as a note, I used to work for Hackney Youth Services, and some of the people I was working with, it's not just about being stopped once a week. They would be stopped and searched 7 times a day. But they were often coming in with just this negative prejudice of, the society I live in is telling me I'm no good, telling me I'll achieve nothing, telling me I'm suspicious. And you know, as a youth worker, I found that hard because it's not the message that I was trying to tell. But imagine from their point of view, if that is constantly the message that's always being reiterated again and again and again. And if they do break the rules, they are more likely to be caught because there's more stop and search, more security guards, more vigilance. And then when they get in front of a judge or a jury, they are more likely to get a harsher sentence. So that's schooling. You then leave schooling and you decide, okay, I'm going to apply for a job. And if somebody submits a CV with a white-sounding name, they are more likely to get an interview than somebody who submits the exact same CV with a name which sounds like it's from a black or minority ethnic community. Not about qualifications, not about experience, just the name. So let's say they get into a job. Again, there might be a name thing, there might be a, but how do you say that? How do you pronounce it? Oh, I can never remember that name. Or again, you get some people who are like, oh, I can't tell those two people apart because everybody looks the same. And all these strange things start to come in terms of prejudice. I've got a tiny bit of sympathy for this. So it is easier to recognize differences within your own racial group. So it can be harder with a different race because you're having to take in more subtleties that you're maybe not used to. But make the effort. Learn who people are, because it's not okay to say, this is hard, so I'm not going to do it, or I'm going to avoid it, or I'm just going to say, oh, hey, buddy, hey, you. Like, you've got to get over this and you've got to find a way to connect with people, because connecting is really important. Because this is what it's about. It's about people. We're getting to know people. So yes, sometimes it's hard, but we've got to make an effort. So different people might be in a meeting and they might be trying to collaborate or contribute to a project. Who speaks in a meeting? How much time do they get to speak? How many people listen to their opinions? What happens in terms of group dynamics? And again, it's been found that white people will often take more of the time in a meeting than black people. They will often interrupt and speak over or ignore. So there's even been dynamics where a black person has made a suggestion which has been ignored, and then a few minutes later the white person will make the same suggestion and be praised for how great that is as an idea. All of these kinds of things go on, and I don't think people are meaning to do it, but you need to be really aware that this is the dynamic that many people are living in. And if somebody is speaking in a meeting, think very carefully about, are you going to interrupt them? Are you going to speak over them? Are you going to affirm them? Are you going to support them? Are you going to refer back later to say, I think we need to come back to the point made by my colleague here because maybe there is something to look at there. The media we consume, there is often not good representation. So there is often still a predominantly white cast, or if there is diversity within the cast, it may still be very stereotypical. There's also sometimes positive stereotypes which still play into stereotypes. So you might get a film that tells a story of the strong black woman who is faced with all this adversity but overcomes it and goes on to great things. It might still be playing into a racist trope of whatever you do, it doesn't matter because, you know, if you're a strong black woman, then you can cope with that. There's also a narrative around that kind of thing where it's the goal of that character who's experiencing racism to prove to the racist character that they are a good person and befriend them. And again, it's what is the narrative here? What expectation is being set up? I don't see very many films where there is racism and all the other characters turn around and say, whoa, that's not acceptable. And the media that we consume feeds into our cultural conscience. So whatever we see and absorb from the TV and the films, that will play into the things that we think, which again takes us back to where we started this with the teacher that has different expectations from different students. So we know that these views can seep in from culture, and we know they can seep in from education, and we know also they can seep in from families. But the job of everyone is to examine themselves, to be more self-aware, to bring the unconscious into the conscious, and to do something about that. I want to read very briefly from this book, Mindsight by Daniel Siegel. So transform your brain with the new science of kindness. Perhaps your parents conscientiously avoided overt negative comments about people of other races, religion, or sexual orientation. But you still might have picked up non-verbal signs of irritation, distress, or disgust if you brought home a friend of a different background. While these implicit mental models exist in all of us, with Mindsight, we can begin to free ourselves from the powerful and insidious ways they create our here and now perceptions and beliefs. Seeing deeply and clearly into the inner world also gives us the opportunity to focus our awareness in a way that promotes the integration of memory. And this is important. Everyone has to do this. Everyone has to make it their job to consciously make steps to be less racist. It's not just about thinking, this is a problem for somebody else, I'm fine. It's about really examining, how can I do better? Because that's what we all need to do. If you want a better society, start with yourself. Start with, how can I do better in what I do? And then how can I add my voice to help make it better for everybody else? So all of these things are just like many, many ways that society is treating people differently and setting things up to not be even, not be fair, not be equitable. So I get it when people say all lives matter. Of course all lives matter. Nobody is suggesting that they don't. Nobody is saying Black lives only matter or only Black lives matter. That's not the campaign. The campaign is Black lives matter too. Because do you know what? A lot of the other lives, they already matter. They already have all this privilege and protection and whole society structures set up to support them in a way that it's not set up to support everyone. And it's about saying everyone deserves that support. Everyone needs the same access to justice and fairness and opportunity. I mean, let's look at, for example, COVID-19. If you are Black, you are 2 to 4 times more likely to die of COVID-19 than a white person. Which of these is better? It's like you're getting the worst treatment or the best treatment depending on race, or, well, okay, some of you are just going to die because actually all of the institutional racism around this has created an environment where we can't save you. So it's not, these are not good choices. It's not okay. This is the society we're living in. It's not fair. It's not equal. It's not just. It's not right. There's a saying, death by 1,000 cuts. It comes from a form of torture and execution which originated in Imperial China, where you would cut somebody 1,000 times until they died. And you know, I think that's what this is. That's what I've been trying to build up to in this video, because it's not just one paper cut. One paper cut stings, and it hurts like hell for such a small injury. And you know, any act of racism is a bit like that, but it's not about one. It's about living in a society where there are many, many, many paper cuts that keep coming at you in different forms of racism. And you never know where they're going to come from next, or who's going to deliver them, or what's going to happen. So we've said that actually you can be racist without meaning to be. And I think people do not understand this. They still genuinely think a racist is somebody that like joins the Ku Klux Klan, and it's not the full picture. You can be racist while meaning to give a compliment. So, hair. There's this weird thing that white people sometimes do where they're like, I love your hair, it's so special, mine's nothing like that, and can I touch it? No. White people, stop it. Like, it's not acceptable that you don't go up to your other white girlfriends and be like, can I touch your hair? My family went on a holiday to Nepal, and my little sister has very blonde hair. It's blonder than mine. And for the 2 weeks we were there, people would follow us around and would touch her hair. Strangers, random people all the time. And it freaked her out because that's not normal. It's odd to have your space invaded and have people touching you. Having people continuously comment on how exotic and special and interesting your hair is, it doesn't affirm, oh yes, you are one of us, you're a person who is valued. It affirms your curiosity and you're somehow unusual and worthy of comment. And I think people mean it as a compliment. It crosses a boundary that's not necessarily appropriate. Like, would you do it to somebody else? Like, is this a conversation you would have with your white friends? And if it isn't, don't do it. I think sometimes there's this thing where you can be racist and not mean to be racist, and somebody can turn around and say, ooh, ow. And the thing then is, how, as a white person, do you respond to that? Do you say, I am so sorry, I didn't mean to hurt you, let me go away and think about my own implicit racism and prejudices and do some work and really try and understand how this happened so that I can avoid this ever happening again, and can I make it up to you? Or do you say, I'm not racist. Do you know how many people I'm friends with who are not white? And do you know how many other things that I've done that are not racist? And let me prove to you my non-racist credentials. I've done all of these things that are non-racist, and how dare you say I'm racist? That's not true. I am being judged here. This is people playing the race card to like get one over me, and it's not fair that I can't play the race card because I'm white and I'm the only person that can't, and I'm the victim here. This is white fragility. This is the kind of thing that happens, because actually what you should do is the first thing. You should say, I'm sorry, let me learn and let me do better. But what often happens instead is the second, where people somehow manage to twist it from being an I've hurt you into a you've accused me, that hurts me, I'm the one that's been wronged. And it's a weird, weird thing that is just odd, because let's for 1 second give the benefit of the doubt. Let's say that you genuinely didn't mean to be racist at all, and the slightly rude or inappropriate thing you said is genuinely because of something that has nothing to do with race. So you're offended by their t-shirt. The other person has grown up in a society where constantly these different prejudices come. 99% of the time, race is a factor. So maybe this is the 1% of the time when it isn't. And maybe they genuinely did make an assumption that you were being racist, and maybe on this one occasion you genuinely weren't. But that still doesn't make the white person the victim in this. And there should still be some kind of dialogue here that acknowledges that, you know, if you think I was being racist, maybe the reason you've made that assumption is because that's the normal expectation, because that's what you've repeatedly experienced. So we know a bit about all of those different ways it can manifest, and there are so many more that I've not talked about. So don't think that you've watched this video and you now know. You know some, go find out some more. Often, at this point in the video, I would move on to say, here's a drama therapy activity. Let's look at a way of exploring this and a way of healing from this particular kind of trauma. This is something which is insidious, and it's all over the place, and it's coming from multiple directions. And the first thing about healing is you've got to create safety. And if you're still, in terms of racism, living in a society where all of that prejudice and all of that discrimination and all of that injustice is still going on everywhere, then just giving some kind of activity to be like, oh, do some deep breaths, or whatever it is that I might offer in that space, there's got to be a bigger change. And it's all of our job to create that change, because actually, if we want to invite people to do the healing work, we've got to create an environment where the healing can take place. I think the other thing to think about in terms of healing is this a quick fix? Even if we could snap our fingers now and all racism stopped, it's not an easy thing to heal from. And in fact, the literature suggests that if you experience a society which is racist, you are likely to develop a form of post-traumatic stress disorder. So the diagnosis is called complex post-traumatic stress disorder, and racism is one of the factors that really, really feeds into this. So it isn't just about saying do some deep breaths. We're talking about needing healing for individuals, for communities, for families, for whole of society. It's going to need some work, and it's going to need patience and understanding and support. One of the creative things that I will talk about is toys. I'm a drama therapist and I work quite a lot with toys. Diversity in toys is often lacking. So look at it. Whether you're another therapist that's following me or whether you're a parent, because I know both of those groups do follow me, look at the toys that you've got. How diverse are they? How representative are they? How inclusive? What kind of character traits are they showing? And is that balanced? I'm going to give a shout out to some Black-led businesses. This is a doll that I got, I love her, from Monero Kids, which is a shop on Balls Pond Road in northeast London. And you can also buy her, if you don't live locally to there, from justlikemetoys.com. I'm going to put the link to both of those in the description. But make an effort of making sure that the toys you offer look like different kinds of people. It's important that they might have options of that looks like me. Even if all of my clients are white, which sometimes that happens, having toys that don't just look like one demographic but represent diversity can start to take away some of that feeling of I am this and everything else is other, and it can start to introduce actually it's okay to look different. I hope you've got something out of it. I hope it's given you things to think about. I hope it leads you to research this a bit more and find out more and to do some self-reflection.